Welcome. In this video, we'll talk about the Crystal Ball project as well as the print and clear commands, which are pretty straightforward. But first, I wanted to show you guys circuit and go over it quick. It's relatively not too hard to understand once you know how this is all wired up, which we went over in earlier videos. So remember, we're just wiring up main power, our contrast pin. So this voltage determines how light or dark it is. We got the pin hooked up to the register select. So for instruction mode and character mode, we're setting it constantly in write mode by holding that low. We've got this one, which is the enable pin. So whenever it wants to do an instruction, it sets up all the other pins and then makes it go, it's normally at high, it makes it go low for a sec and then high again, and then the LCD carries out the instruction set out by the other pins. It leaves the digital pins 0 through 3 unconnected because it's in 4-bit mode, and then the other digital pins are connected to Arduino pins 5 through 2, and then 15 and 16 just are connected to the backlight for this thing. So it's just like any other LED. We need a 220 ohm resistor so we don't burn the thing out, and then the positive side and the negative side for it. And that makes the backlight up. If you pulled one of those out, it would still work. It just wouldn't be lit up in the back. All right, the only other thing we got is this tilt switch here, which again, as always, I'd recommend you replace it with a push button switch or something else. Had someone use a photo transistor before so they could wave their hand over it, which was pretty cool. But yeah, do not like tilt switches because shaking a breadboard thing is generally not a good idea. But this causes the fortune to occur. So when it senses that that is changed state, it makes a fortune come on the screen, this crystal ball thing. Let's go over how it works. So first we import our liquid crystal library, very important, so we can make our LCD liquid crystal object, which is going to do all our communicating with the LCD automatically. So we include our library, so we got all the previous work done by other people, and we make our LCD object and tell it what Arduino pins are connected to which pins of the LCD. We set a constant for our switch pin. That's what's connected to our tilt switch. It's connected to pin 6. And then, as always with switches, we need to know when it's changed state. So we got one variable to hold the current state of the tilt switch and one to hold the state last time through the loop. We also have an int to hold which reply. We're going to generate a random number, and we'll see in a second. Anyway, so we're setting up which reply should be displayed. So that variable holds that. And then in setup, we just tell our LCD object what are the dimensions of it itself. So it's 16 characters across by 2 down. If we had a different size display, we'd put in different numbers there. But number of columns, number of rows, and then we set our switch pin to be an input. It defaults to that, so we don't really need to, but good practice. And then we have our print command. So we have the name of our object, dot print, and then this will start printing the words to the LCD screen. By default, it starts off at position 0, 0, or top left. So it'll write ask the on the top left. And then we set our cursor so we can start writing in the bottom row. And we go to the first character, second row. So we're at the bottom left. And then we write crystal ball along the bottom row. We could adjust this number to make crystal ball more centered, and we could have a set cursor over here if we felt like to say, I don't know, 4, something like 4 and 0, and that would pretty much center that. And then we're on to loop. So what we've done is we printed out Ask the Crystal Ball so far and set everything up. So first thing we do, just like we've done every other time when reading from pins, is we set our current switch state to whatever we're getting off the pin connected to the switch. And then we have our design pattern for if, or our programming pattern to check to see if the switch state has gone, in this case, it's saying, hey, it's gone from, it's not the same last pass-through loop as it was this loop. So this first if statement is saying that it's either just been pressed or just been released. Of course, it's a tilt switch, so it's a little bit different, but that's kind of what it's getting at. It's just effectively been pressed or just been released. And then if that's true, there's another if statement inside this, which checks to see that it's low. So it's as if you replace the tilt switch with a button, this would be checking for the instant that you just released the button. Because it's not currently being pressed, and it's different than it was last time. Before, it must have been being pressed. We could do this differently. We could do it all in one if statement with an and in between. Yeah, remember previous videos for how to deal with this. And then we set our reply variable to random 8. Remember, random 8 will randomly give us a number between 0 and 7. So those are our possible digits in reply, 0 through 7. And then we bust out a switch statement to deal with what we want to print to the screen in a second. So first thing, we got our first instance of lcd.clear. lcd.clear clears the display, so any text that was previously on it is gone. lcd.setCursor00, of course, sets it to the top left position, and then it prints the ball says up on the top line. lcd.setCursor01 sets it to the bottom left, so we're writing on the bottom row, and depending on what you randomly got as your reply variable, it depends on what it prints. So if it's a random number between 0 and 7, so if it was a 0, the LCD will print yes on the bottom row and get out of the switch statement. If it was a 1 that it randomly chose, it'll print most likely. If it was a 2 that it randomly chose, it'll print certainly. If it was a 3 it randomly chose, it'll print outlook good. Remember, this is all in the bottom row because we have set our cursor to the bottom row. And yeah, yada, yada, yada. You can add more cases easily just by continuing to add cases inside the switch statement, though you would also have to change the bounds of your random number. So it would be possible to have reply be that number. So if you added an 8th case, you'd want random 9, because then it would randomly generate a number between 0 and 8. And then again with our programming pattern for dealing with looking for switch transitions or button transitions, we need to save, getting ready for the next pass-through loop, we need to save what was the current state of the switch for this pass-through loop as the previous switch state, so it's ready for the next pass-through loop. And that is the crystal ball program. Hopefully it makes sense. Apologies for going on long.